Happy day, digital world. I'm ready to answer some more amazing questions from the data visualization module. I'm really happy about all the energy I'm getting and the enthusiasm that I'm getting over the assignment. I even had a student come in and see me in person today, showing me his massive progress and massive success stories. And I'm sure he's going to do really well. He's got the whole assignment finished except the observations, essentially. So I was impressed with his progress. So this is question number 28 for assignment 2. Hi, I've watched the video. The color is mapped to the scalar of each vector. The representation of the glyphs is point Gaussian. I have attached a few more images, the representation being surface with edges. I'm using GenSally to create a 1D float array and every 3 values being the x, y, z values of each vector, which I am storing in a VTK file. I have included an image showing the beginning of my VTK file. Each line represents a vector in the order of x, y, and z. I am using dimensions 32 by 32 by 32 for x, y, and z respectively, and a time value of 1. So I've looked at your images, the new ones you have sent me, and I think there is almost certainly something wrong. And I am going to guess that it is with the position of your samples. So something is wrong with the position of your samples. I recommend that you review the previous video that I made on looking at the positionings, examining and deriving the positions of the data samples. It's student questions 20 through 27 on assignment 2, because I think something is going wrong with your positions. All you have to input the vector component values, so that sounds good, like what you're doing, but they have to be in the right order, so along x first, then along y, and then along z, so in rasterized order, you could say. And then you just have to you have to tell VTK the resolution of your data, so 32 cubed, for example. And that's it. And hopefully that will help. And double check, like I said, the documentation on VTK to see exactly what it requires and what it should look like. And run an example data set that VTK already provides to make sure your version of VTK is working, right? That's a very important, I think. Just try VTK out on a data set that they provide that you know is working before trying your own data, and have a look at that data set. What does it look like, and compare your data set to that given data set that works. I hope that helps. This question 29, is very similar to 28. Many thanks for your reply in the video. I've attached the images I've managed to get so far for Sally. To get these, I use a value of 36 for x, s, y, s, and zs. Random choice that's divisible by 3 for x, y, and z. I created an array and passed it to GenSally to populate. On the populated array, I then calculate the magnitude of the method provided in using every 3 numbers as x, y, and z. I save the output from GenSally as a comma-separated text file with 4 columns. I import this into ParaView, set it to use x, y, and z as coordinate values, and use the magnitude for the color gradient. Not sure if these images are on the right track at all. Again, I highly recommend watching the previous video I made on interpreting the output from GenSally and interpreting the positions. It sounds to me like you've got quite a few things wrong, actually, here. You said, for example, to get these, I use the value of 36 for XS, YS, and ZS. That's not gonna work for a number of reasons. The values that you input to Sally are indices. The first one is the X index of the first data sample. The second one is the X index of the second data sample, right? The X, Y, and Z indices. So it's actually the positions in space of each data sample that you input to GenSally. And this is what I tried to explain in the previous video. So you're actually inputting the positions, and the position of each data sample changes, right? It's changing in space. It's changing along X from X equals X min to X max. It's changing along Y from Y min to Y max, and the same for the Z component. So generally, we usually use powers of 2 for our dimensions, like 32 cubed, 64 cubed, and 128 cubed as our resolution. So I created an array and passed it to GenSally to populate. On the populated array, I then calculate the magnitude. I don't think you have to calculate the magnitude. I don't think that that's necessary. And why would it be? If you pass in 3 component values of each data sample to ParaView or VTK or whatever program, that program can derive the magnitude automatically. You don't need it to supply it with the magnitude. That hint is there just in case you run a piece of software, you use a piece of volume visualization software that does not accept vector values. Not all volume visualization software accepts vector values. So in that case, you would have to compute the magnitude at each sample location again, and then pass that to the volume visualization software that you're using. And I saved the output from GenSally as a comma-separated text file with 4 columns, X coordinates, Y coordinates, Z coordinates. That sounds correct. And magnitude, that doesn't sound correct. Like I said, you wouldn't need to pass magnitude. That fourth one might be a time step, right? But we didn't talk about time-dependent volume data in this assignment. So the time step always stays the same, which is 1. So like I said, check the file format specifications indicated by the ParaView user guide, and you'll find that things will get better. Question 30. Hi, Dr. Laramie. Is it okay to use the Dicom files in the Mail/Visible Human 2.0 dataset folder for the last part of the assignment? I am unable to read the .raw files properly in ParaView, but the Dicom files work perfectly. The answer to that question is yes, you are allowed to use the Dicom files. Easy question. Question 31. I wonder how many questions there are going to be before the deadline. It's so exciting. Hi Bob, I was just wondering if you had a preference for the length of the demos we produce. I was thinking that around 30 seconds per visualization would be good, which would make the final video 4 to 5 minutes long. You obviously have a lot of assignments to mark, so please let me know if this would be too long. I don't think you need 30 seconds per visualization. I would say something like 15 seconds would be fine, 10 to 15 seconds, like just showing, for example, direct volume rendering, rotating at 360 degrees and done, sort of thing. So 4 to 5 minutes. You can use 4 to 5 minutes, but it's a little bit long, I would say. Question 32. Good morning. I've watched your last video on how to create the data positioning between each data sample on the X and Y axis. However, I'm a little confused as to where in the code I implement the equations you presented in your previous video. Any help would be appreciated. Thank you. So in my previous video, I said I'm actually making this more complicated than it is, and I am still saying that today. The video, the input to Sally is simply the indices, the X indices, the Y indices, and the Z indices of the three-dimensional array that you want to store the sample data components in. So, in fact, all you need to know is the resolution of your data sets. So, for example, 32 cubed, or 64 cubed, or 128 cubed. That's actually all you need to know. So if you specify a 64 cubed data sets, so the maximum X index is 64, and the maximum Y index is 64, and the maximum Z index is 64, that's all you need to specify. And then GenSally will automatically compute the values along the indices of X, Y, and Z, right? And just storing those in the proper rasterized order, the volume rendering software will know what to do with that. It will usually, the volume rendering software only needs the array of data values and the resolution of your volume data. That's all it needs. It will automatically map that Cartesian space to a cube in the volume visualization software, based on the values and the resolution that you tell it. I hope that helps. Like it's not as complicated. I was making those drawings just for conceptual purposes, so that you could see like what the requirements are. Question 33. Dear Bob, I have tried to take a look at the Betty data and noticed that a DAT file was included. That's correct. For my first data sets, I used the walnut.dat on Voreen's website and found that this worked fine. Good. Therefore, I loaded the Betty.dat into the software. I have a feeling that the output I had is not correct. Your feeling is correct. The output you have does not look correct. I have attached a screenshot of the Betty.dat in Voreen, which includes a direct volume visualization top left and slicing of the volume data. As you can see in the screenshot, the slices do not show much, if anything, but this does not make sense as I lowered the opacity of the direct volume renderer using the transfer function. The volume appeared to be hollow. I was hoping you could confirm whether or not what I have done is okay, or if Betty.dat does not work the same as walnut.dat. So your Betty.dat is not working correctly yet. And I don't know exactly why, but my guess is you haven't looked carefully at the supplementary files in the Betty folder. So one of the important parameters you need to specify is the resolution of Betty.dat in the X, Y, and Z components. Betty is not a nice square like Sally and the walnut. Those are nice square, for example, 64 cubed, 128 cubed. They're nice square Cartesian cubes. If you look in the supplementary file, in the supplementary README files in the Betty folder, you will discover that Betty is not a cube, but rather a rectangle. So the X dimension is longer than the Y dimension, which is also longer than the Z dimension. Something like that. So it's not a perfect cube. So if you tell ParaView or Voreen or any other volume rendering software that it's a cube, it won't work. That's my guess where you've gone wrong there. Question 34. I just wanted to adjust something that I said in the previous email, and this is about the volume appearing to be hollow. After looking at Betty a little more, I think the block is not hollow. That's correct. Betty is not hollow, and neither is the block. Question 35, and the last one for today. Dear Dr. Laramie, I am one of the CDT PhD students from Cardiff University that is taking your data visualization course remotely. I have been informed that the marks for the first assignment have been released. However, when I log into the coursework page on the Swansea Blackboard, I see that I haven't been awarded any marks for my submission, which doesn't seem correct to me. Thank you in advance for your help. So, this student has the special distinction of being the only student that had trouble with the submission to Blackboard. I don't know what went wrong, but your submission to Blackboard was not downloadable like all of the other submissions. So there have been delays with assessing. Any delays with submissions or problems with submissions appear as delays with the assessment as well. And actually, this is the only one that falls in that case. However, I have printed it out, and it's on my to-do list to assess this. So I'm going to assess this very soon. Expect that this week. And yeah, if there are any other questions, please send them my way. I'm getting some psychic waves through the universe that there is one more question that nobody has asked me yet, and that is, what is that strange t-shirt you're wearing today? This is a strange t-shirt from one of my favorite bands called Echo Belly. Oh no, Paramore. I forgot I confused with Echo Belly. Anyway, I went to see Paramore in Cardiff. I think 2 months ago. Was it? When was it? It was in January. I don't know if anybody else went to see Paramore, but anyway, this is a retro style concert T-shirt from Paramore. Not conference. I got a lot of conferences. Concert. Okay, any more questions? Send them my way.